Yeah, thanks, Mel, for that. Yeah, it's been a couple of months since our last session, so it's good to have everybody back coming together and just kind of like go through um where we have um for today. So as you will have seen in your learning management platform, so this is or the syllabus. This is our final live session, but of course we might have a couple of more depending on a couple of other things that we'll discuss that are more future looking. So let me just say a few things before I invite team. We've made some progress so far, and as you can see here, we've gone from the the kickoff session. We've come to the in-person workshop that we had. I mean, not in person, of course. We didn't adjust this, the workshop week, and then we are here, problem solving, our final live session for this progress. As you all know, this journey changed a bit because of all the happenings in the US around funding and the support program and so forth. So it feels really nice, like we are all here making progress and doing a lot of good work. So congratulations to everybody for making it so far. There are few of us who did not make it here, so you can feel proud for for having made some good progress until this point. Now, until this point, even before I invite team to just take us through what we are supposed to do today, just to check in. So by now you should have had at least at least two mentorship sessions with your mentor. And if some of you have checked progress, some of you have scheduled them, so it's a good thing. So we need to get those going. Otherwise, congratulations for those who met at least 3 times with their mentors. I know timelines can also be challenging and so forth, but let's make progress. You also should have made good progress on your playbook, because I mean that's the bigger product that we want to deliver as having gone through all this. So we also need to see that we're making some good progress in terms of the playbook itself. And if you're facing any challenges by now, you should have been talking to us, and feel free to still talk to us, but we're hoping that everybody has made progress. Session 4 in the LMS also needs to have been completed by now. So if you are not yet completing session 4, then probably you should consider yourself behind progress. And also this also goes for the mentors to just check on their mentees or the participants, just make sure like we are making progress and we are moving together. Otherwise, you find you're lagging behind while others are moving. But the idea for us is to move together, making the same progress, so that even the support that we provide then is kind of within that same wavelength. And then just briefly talk about a couple of things. So mentorship debrief in the LMS as well is one of the key things that we need to check. If you have had 3 sessions with your mentor, then you should have also had 3 debrief courses in the LMS platform. It's just kind of catching up, summarizing the discussion that you would have with your mentor and describing the experience and also noting any challenges that you have. So put it down. And of course, like I said, generally the playbook progress. So Mel, I don't know if you have any additions at this point. Good. All right. So I don't want to say anything much more than that. It's more of an administrative thing. I think team, this is his show. I want to welcome him to lead us from here going forward. Welcome, team.
Great, thanks very much, Kip, and really good to see you all again today. So, as you know, and as Kip was talking about there, we're really keen that this programme is as practical as possible, and from it, you develop your own action plans for how to mainstream participation in your particular context. So to help with that, today we wanted to spend a session talking you through and also practicing a particular method for creative problem solving. to hopefully help you along that way. I mean, I think we all have our own different kind of individual ways of developing projects and thinking about how to develop solutions to problems. This is one particular method that you might hopefully find useful, and you can hopefully take it, adapt it, adopt it as you see fit in your particular case. And yeah, we're going to hopefully use today to get to know the method, but then also to practice it a bit as well. So Kip, if you could move us on to the next slide, please.
Is it moving now?
Great. Yeah, that's perfect. So you may have come across this before. You may have come across something similar to it. So the idea is that the creative problem solving method kind of breaks down into 4 steps. So first of all, clarifying the challenge. Second, generating ideas. Third, developing solutions. And then fourth, implementing action. We'll go through each of these steps in detail. So I'll talk you through them. But overall, the idea is that it's a method for approaching a problem or a challenge in an imaginative and innovative way. So the idea is to kind of inject as much creativity into your process of kind of thinking about how to solve a particular challenge. It's also a way for processing your kind of thinking and your action around an issue in a way where you're avoiding jumping immediately to solutions or making perhaps kind of inappropriate judgments about what might be the best way of doing something. So it's a methodical way of thinking through an issue. Importantly, though, it's a very flexible approach. So there are some parts of this that you might find useful and you want to use. There are other parts you might find less useful. But also you can incorporate lots of other tools into it as well. So things that we've already done, like the stakeholder mapping, that could be really useful when you're thinking about the developing solutions stage. Some of the, I guess, other things like power analysis could be quite useful when you're thinking around clarifying the challenge. So as you go through these different steps, you can also think about other tools, other methods that might be useful to support that stage. And I guess final thing to say is that this is quite similar to other approaches. So things like design thinking, human-centered design, innovation methodologies, lots of them have similar features. So perhaps if this one doesn't click with you, then you can also have a look at some of these others as well, and maybe it has features that might be more appropriate to what works for you. So the I guess another way of thinking around the creative problem solving method is just I guess kind of comparing it to how we might traditionally think about project cycles. So often the way we think about a project is quite linear. So we might start off with a kind of initiation phase. We might then go into planning, then execution, monitoring, and then kind of closing the projects. And I guess one of the problems of this is that you can bake in assumptions at an early stage of the process that you might not revisit again, but might turn out to be false assumptions, and then can kind of undermine the impacts of the projects. And it can also be, when you're thinking about it in this kind of quite linear way, it can be hard to adapt during the implementation phase. Whereas the creative problem solving method, the idea is to always be going through this process of testing and kind of analyzing, and it's kind of a continuous process of maybe kind of tweaking your direction according to the kind of the feedback you're getting from what's working and what's not. So it often encourages small scale testing, and so kind of setting up prototypes and reviewing and adapting as you go. The idea is that, yeah, you're kind of, as you go through the cycle, you're also adapting maybe some of the work that you did in the earlier stages to then kind of take account of what you're learning. And also importantly, it's really, really good to do this in collaboration with other people as well, and kind of use other people to test ideas, to come up with new ideas, and to do it as a kind of collaborative process. Next slide, please, Skip. So one of the, I guess, approaches that's kind of built into the creative problem solving method is this idea of divergent thinking and convergent thinking. So the idea of divergent thinking is that some steps of the process, what you want to be doing is thinking really broadly about different possibilities, coming up with lots of different ideas. At this stage, reserving judgment and being as creative as possible. But then at other steps, what you want to be doing is converging down into your preferred solution, or I guess the thing that you think is going to be most impactful or most feasible. And it's important as you go through the process to be mindful of what stage you're at. So, so perhaps there are, particularly during the ideas development phase, staying in the divergent thinking, being really kind of broad and open in your thinking. But then when you're thinking more about turning that into specific solutions to take forward, then you're in the convergent thinking stage and being much more methodical about making judgments and kind of making, well, I guess, assessing your options against criteria. So that just helps with, as I said at the beginning, stopping just immediately jumping to a particular solution or making judgments too early on that might mean that you miss a good opportunity for tackling your issue. Next slide, please, Skip. So just building on that, so some of the guidelines to thinking around kind of, I guess, divergent thinking is so the idea of deferring judgment. So as I said, when you're in the divergent thinking phase, not judging the ideas you're coming at with and avoiding the words kind of no but. So no but this isn't going to work for this reason, or no but that's impossible, that's a silly idea, those sorts of things. Instead, thinking much more in the mode of yes and, so kind of building on ideas and being as free in your thinking as possible. Also, when you're doing in the phase of divergent thinking, going for quantity, so developing lots of different ideas and yeah, again, being really free in your thinking. Linked to that being, I guess, kind of seeking wild and unusual ideas as well, because often actually when we're kind of unlocking that more creative side of our brain, it's the idea might sound wild on the face of it, but it might, as you develop it further on, it might actually start to crystallize into something that's actually it's a novel way of approaching an issue that you might not have otherwise considered. Kind of links to that, kind of building on other ideas. So as you develop an idea, maybe that triggers another thought, and kind of following those trains of thoughts and ideas. Also encouraging risk taking as well, and using creative tools to help you to think about, I guess, come up with different options. Next slide, please. But then when you're kind of moving into the convergent thinking phase, then you're kind of switching your approach. Here, again, still using affirmative judgment, so looking for the positives in the ideas that you've developed, so trying to steer clear of kind of phrasing things negatively or thinking or kind of immediately discounting ideas that you've come up with, but perhaps kind of thinking more positively, kind of what are the features of this idea that I could take out and might be part of my solution. But also at this stage, being quite deliberate and systematic in the way that you are doing that. So having a set of criteria that you're judging the ideas against that can help you to start to narrow down to perhaps which are the ones that are going to be most feasible, or what are the ones that are going to be most impactful. Importantly, also checking against your objectives. So this is the point to think, okay, so is this idea or is this combination of ideas really going to help to make progress towards my objective? Then also combining and refining ideas. So it might be that you have a group of ideas that you can bring together into kind of one solution, or it might be that you need to tweak them a little bit to make them work. But yeah, kind of not being kind of stuck with the ideas as they are, but kind of looking at different combinations of them. But then also keeping novelty alive as well. So yeah, next slide, please, Kip. So as I said, there are these kind of 4 stages then, and I'm going to talk you through the clarifying the challenge stage quite quickly, but we're going to work on the assumption that you've already done some thinking around this. So this phase, we're not going to practice today, but we will then practice the later phases. So next slide, please, Kip. So, I mean, this still might be useful as you think around, as you revise your challenge, and yeah, think a bit more about what your the problem that you're trying to solve. One way about thinking about defining a challenge is thinking about it as the gap between the present kind of situation as it is, and then the future kind of vision that you have for how things should be different. And having a really clear challenge statement that helps to define what that gap is, and kind of how you can bridge that gap, is kind of then a useful way of thinking about then kind of how you might solve it. Next slide, please, Kip. So a few kind of pointers on that in terms of kind of what makes a good challenge statement. So so particularly because the next stage is that kind of divergent thinking, ideas generation, it's good to have a challenge statement that invites lots of different ideas, lots of different possibilities for addressing it, so quite open-ended. But also you need it to clearly state the challenge for what for which you want your ideas. So it needs to give you some guidance, needs to give you some boundaries in which you're working, as well. Needs to be well defined to give you a focus. So not too broad that it's kind of hard to know read. So really kind of focus your attention. Ideally needs to be quite concise and to the point. So no kind of like paragraph statements of what your challenge is. Ideally, if you can get it into one sentence of kind of 10 words or less, that's really easy and concise to work with. It's good to have it phrased in a positive way as well. So rather than phrasing it as a kind of a negative challenge, having it as a more kind of positively phrased challenge. How might we achieve this, rather than this is the problem that we're trying to solve, and then also free of criteria that's going to kind of limit your thinking in terms of solutions as well. Next slide, please, Kip. So one way of thinking about then how you might phrase it is this kind of I guess kind of equation of starting with how might, having the kind of the owner of this, so we, or kind of defining who's going to be taking this on, having then the action that that needs to happen to get you from the current status quo to the your kind of preferred vision for the future, and then the kind of objects of what you're trying to affect. So that's just one way of thinking about it. This might work for you, might not, but yeah, hopefully is helpful. So that's the first stage of clarifying the challenge. But now let's move on to generating ideas. So this is where we're then turning to the divergent thinking. So next slide, please, Kip. So here, the idea is that you're essentially kind of brainstorming lots of ideas for solving the challenge that you've just defined. As I said, you're using divergent thinking. So you're thinking of as many possible options at this stage as possible. You're not applying any judgment to them. So I guess the idea of there are no bad ideas at this stage is important. And then using other sources of inspiration as well. So you've already been going through the participation playbook that has lots of different ideas in that you could perhaps adopt and kind of bring into your pool of ideas. You might have had conversations through the program where somebody may have said something that's giving you an idea. You might have other sources of ideas from elsewhere, but yeah, using lots of different sources of inspiration. Next slide, please, Kip. So just to say, actually, on the ideas, generating ideas, in a second we're going to practice that, but then to just take us on to the next step. So developing solutions. This is then when we're moving from that being very free in our thinking to now, I guess, kind of focusing it down into particular solutions that you're going to take forward. So here, the focus is more around analysing, refining, combining different ideas that you've just come up with. And so using the convergent thinking, evaluating the ideas that you've got according to different criteria that you might have. So could be how practical they are, how much impact they might have, what resources they might take. As we said earlier, combining, refining ideas as you do that as well. And then also discarding ideas that perhaps aren't kind of meeting your criteria at this phase. But then also it's a good point to get feedback from others as well of kind of, does this solution actually meet my challenge? So next slide, please, Kip. So now we move on to the practical activity. So we're going to have a go at this. We're going to break up into some small groups. But the first part, we want you to be thinking individually. So not discussing within your group to start off with, and you're just going to be thinking, doing that first step of brainstorming ideas for your challenge. So you may have some of these already, but the idea, as I said, to be very free in your thinking at this point, come up with lots of different ideas. And then we want you to, once you've done that, to feedback to your group one solution that you think is kind of most promising from the ideas that you've just been thinking about. And yeah, so kind of presenting it to your group and maybe getting some feedback from them on it. Importantly, so we're going to give you about 25 minutes to do this all, and that's not a lot of time to do this, we realise. So the idea isn't for this to be comprehensive. The idea is to kind of practice the methodology and maybe make a start that you can come back to in your own time later on. So don't worry about it being perfect at this stage. Test it out, see how it works for you, have a go at kind of presenting the solution you come up with to your group and getting a bit of feedback from them, perhaps. And then we will come back in a bit once you've done that to look at the next stage of implementing action. So any questions from anybody before we go into the breakout groups? Yeah, Robin.
Tim, just to be clear, is everybody bringing their own challenge, or is there a common challenge that everybody's working on?
So everybody bringing their own challenge. So the idea is that we want this to kind of be a starting point for your own thinking around your own specific challenge. Bearing in mind that you might not kind of finish the process today. So yeah, hopefully you've got an idea of what your challenge is already from the conversations you've had with your mentors and the work that you've done already in the program. So kind of working with that as a starting point and developing ideas specifically around your own challenge. Rodrigo.
Yeah, can you go back just one sec to the slide when you had like the structure for the challenge?
Yeah, a couple more slides, Kip. I think I'll tell you when to stop. Next one, that one.
Great. Cool. Okay, so in case like our challenge is to change the attitude or the behavior or of someone else, some stakeholder, the owner should be the stakeholder, right?
So the owner in that case would be you, and the object would be the stakeholder. So for that example, it could be, how might we change the opinion of decision makers around participation?
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you.
Right. Any more questions at this point? So I'll also be moving between breakout groups. If you've got any questions as you're going through it, I can also answer them as we go. But I think we're probably ready to go to breakout rooms then.
Okay, I'm opening them. And there's a Google Doc for everyone to work on if you don't have a space to work on. I'll put the link in the chat for everyone. You don't have to use this, but this is just for you if you want to have a space to write down what you're thinking. Here's the chat. Okay. All right. See you all You all have a mentor in your groups, by the way. Kip, can you make Tim a co-host so he can be able to move around if he isn't already?
Yeah,
I can't hear you.
yeah, sorry. I think he is a host. Let me just check to make sure like this is correct.
Okay. All right. You should be able to move around. I was just checking that you are able to move around, Tim.
Yeah, you should be
Yeah,
able
it's
to.
working now.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna go
So
around the rooms as
is there a
well.
group? Is there a group that doesn't have matter? Everybody? Like, all
No,
of them have?
everyone's gone.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone should be back, Tim.
Great, thanks, Mel. So we realised that was a very quick process to do that. So obviously, if you're doing this for real, you would take a lot longer to do it. You'd maybe involve other people in your team to help with generating the ideas and arriving at the solutions. But hopefully that's just giving you a bit of a taste of that part of the method. But we wanted to quickly move on to the final stage of the method, just to give you a taste of that as well. So Kip, if you can move us to the next slide. So here we're turning our attention to implementing action. So next slide. So once we have once we've chosen or narrowed down to our most promising solution or solutions, now we're thinking about putting them into action. But importantly, we're doing it in a way that is still iterative and where we can test and adapt those ideas and solutions as we go. So yeah, the idea isn't to have at this point a final approach that gets implemented no matter what. The idea is to keep developing it as you go. So here it can be really useful to test the ideas through things like storyboarding, which we're actually going to have a go at in a moment. So using that to kind of visualize actually how might this solution play out in practice? What are the different steps? Kind of what would it look like? As a way to kind of bring it to life and also to share it with other people in a way that they can hopefully envisage it as well. It can also be helpful at this point to think about small scale testing. And so can you prototype the idea or the solution in a way that is kind of less risky, less resource intensive? You can then see how it works, collect some data, and see if you want to scale it or see if you need to adapt it. And yeah, so the idea is to kind of remain open to adaptation throughout the cycle of implementing and continuing as far as is useful, to use convergent and divergent thinking to help to kind of guide what you're doing, help to develop the solution further. Next slide, please, Kip. So in a moment, we're going to have a go at this kind of storyboarding method. So the idea here is to translate the solution that you've come up with into a coherent project that you can then test and get feedback on. And the idea is kind of breaking it down into key stages, giving each of those stages a title, and then actually kind of drawing it using diagrams, using I guess ways that you can visualize it, and also kind of describing it in a way that you can then share it with other people to help to test it as well. So often, I think the guidance is to have at least 5 different stages, but no more than 10. So somewhere between 5 and 10 steps that you're developing these titles, having some kind of diagram to demonstrate it, and a description as well. So next slide, please, Kip. So again, we're going to give you a bit of time. We're going to go into breakout groups. You'll have a bit of time to work individually just to start that. Obviously, you won't get through developing a whole storyboard, but maybe have a go at developing like the first 2 or 3 stages if you can, and just kind of practice the storyboarding technique, see if it might be something that you might find useful. And then you can share that with your group and get some immediate feedback from them as well, just to help you to kind of think a bit further about developing your solution. So that's the next activity. Before we go into breakout groups, any questions about that? Okay, great. I think, Mel, you can send everybody back to breakout groups.
Yeah, I think that should be everyone, Tim.
Great, thanks, Mel. Welcome back, everyone. So hopefully you found that useful, or at the very least, it gave you a bit of time to think around your challenge and your possible solutions. Does anybody have any feedback on the methodology? Anything you liked, anything you disliked about it? Feel free just to jump in if you've got thoughts.
I could give a little bit of feedback. Thank you very much, Tim. I very much like this approach because it gave me a better overview also because of the working with the different stages. It kind of creates a timeline. And I think that's very nice to have more of an overview of the different steps you have to take.
Great, thanks, Ennio. And yeah, I see a comment in the chat as well from Ricardo. So it was a very interesting exercise. So glad it worked for you. Any other thoughts? Yeah, Rodrigo.
Yeah, I really like the fact that how you can integrate like both strategies, like the storyboarding, but also the short like processes of implementation and adaptation, because they work very well. I mean, together, like to actually learn how to shoot. I mean, to follow that path, especially for these like short processes or short cycles of implementation. It's hard sometimes to see how that can change when we have like just the circle, and when we go from there to the storyboard. I do think it's way clearer, and in which ways we have to be like alert to evaluate, and for them to shape or reshape the different steps of the process.
Yeah, thanks for that, Rodrigo. Very good points. And yeah, thanks for your other comments in the chat as well, Ricardo. Yeah, good that you were able to come up with some good material. And as you say, it was a very quick or kind of short version of the process. So if you found it useful or think it might be useful, do give it a try in your own time. Spend a bit more time on it. Maybe work with a team on it as well. Often this is done better when you're working with other people who perhaps have different ways of thinking around ideas and solutions, who might be able to give you a bit more inspiration as well. Any final thoughts from anyone? But the other thing to say is there is a whole kind of detailed methodology around this as well. So if you search for it online, you will find lots of other advice and materials and resources on how to run these processes, how to incorporate other methods into them as well. So yeah, lots more to discover. If there aren't any more thoughts on that, I will hand us back to Kip to round us off with the final messages.
Right. Thanks, team. And everybody. I'm excited about the. I went through the groups and just listening to, the ideas. And in fact, I was telling Mel that I wish you would have recorded the breakout groups, because the discussion really was very rich and very informative. So let's take this tool, put it in our toolbox, and use it. And of course, as Tim said, we'll also be on the lookout for additional material and tools that can help you in this process. But also, if you need any particular resource or tool, please, just email us. We'll figure out if there are such kind of tools and or be able to address your need. Now, just a quick final things. After here, of course, we have the fifth course in the LMS, which we need to kind of complete. Just basically going through this tool, and using it. But of course, those of us who probably might not have joined, that would be a requirement for them to watch the recording, and just familiarize themselves with the tool. And then the most important one will be booking your 4th session with your mentor, so that then you try to kind of also address the challenges and the feedback that you're getting using this kind of tool, but also the progress generally you're making in developing your playbook. And then you will share feedback. We'll develop just a quick poll, but of course, if at all need be, and share with you to just reflect on what was this session like. What would you have liked more for us to focus on? And if there are future needs for us to kind of even just check in for this kind of tool or any other tool, as we get to the home stretch of developing your action plans. Perhaps we may need a couple of more check-ins for a couple of reasons, and this will be informed by a couple of meetings that we're having with other partners this coming month to just think about what does implementation stage look like, because we are very excited about the progress you're making to a point where we are also starting to look forward to the implementation stage of the action plans you're working on. And you will hear from me in the next couple of weeks in terms of what do we want to think about the implementation stage. But you also have seen email from me that if we can get the action plans ready by mid-August, then we spend a couple of weeks just thinking about the implementation process, including implementation plans. If we can get to that, then during the summit we can come together and look at these implementation frameworks or plans that we have, and also map out kind of technical support. We have our mentors here. We're thinking about how do we get them to continue supporting you, even at the implementation stage, when these reforms get to take shape and so forth. So these are things, that are in the pipeline, and we're hoping that, we make some progress and make some headways in getting, to kind of like actualize support for the implementation stage and so forth. Now, just a couple of things administratively. If by now you haven't shared with us your flight information, please do so. But I know most of you have done. The other thing that is very important is that you must have registered for the OGP summit by now. If you've not, remember the deadline closes tomorrow. And so if you are not registered with OGP, even if we get you a ticket, you will not be allowed in the summit. So you have to be registered. And I know team, if you want to say something about that, but it's very important that you register, even as we make all these other logistic arrangements happen. And then the session, as you might have seen in the form, was from 6 to 9, 6 to 8, somewhere there. But now, I will do an email for this, but I've also done another email before. The session will take place from 7 to 10. Now, what it means is that we will spend the first 3 days just interacting with the summit, including a session we're organizing with People Powered and the government of Finland to just reflect on the lessons we're learning from this program, but also to join other relevant sessions. There are several sessions that are relevant to the reforms that you're working on. Then we continue learning. Remember, this is a new thing for all of us, and so we want to learn as much as possible, get as much resources and material as much as possible. And then on Friday, which is the 10th, we will have a full day for ourselves. So that is, the session will have ended at that point. So it will be just a day for us to come together and work on, celebrate our action plans, but also think about the implementation phase of things. And then cover any other sessions that we may not have covered, throughout the sessions, that we've had. And then the last thing I want to say is that we will have 2 dinners. One is a welcome dinner for us on 7th or 8th. We're still figuring out what's the best time that everyone will have come together, because part of the summit is for us to come together and get to know each other, put faces to emails and names. I know most of you, it's been a very interesting journey for the last couple of months. So it will be nice to come together, and I'm hoping that everybody makes to join us. And I know our Global North participants are still figuring out, support for travel. We are really working hard to see what's the best way to get all of us there. As you know, the net grant has restrictions for Global North, ecosystem. But we are trying to see what are the other ways to get all of us at the summit. And I think with that, I don't want to keep you more than this, but I want to bring this to a close. But I just want to let Mel and team, say anything that probably I may have missed, and then maybe spend a couple of minutes for questions, like 3 minutes or so. Team, Mel, anything that you want to add to what I said?
No, maybe stop sharing for now, and then we can see if people have anything to share. But I'm good. I think it's going well so far, and I look forward to seeing everyone in person. And I see everyone is progressing. I think almost everyone is progressing on the LMS, and I see people are using a lot of playbooks, which I didn't think people would have time for, but I see people are completing more than one playbook. So that's exciting.
Great. And if anyone is facing a challenge with the playbook, probably part of the reason why people are completing a lot of playbooks is because probably they're not sure which playbook to complete. So please should send an email, say, you stuck somewhere, because we want to make really progress on the right playbook. Because that's what counts at the end of the day. Mel is here, we are here, let's use these resources. Tim?
Only just to repeat what you said, Kip. So please do register for the summit if you've not done so already. Links in the chat. Very quick to do. Deadline is tomorrow, so please do it ahead of that. And I've also posted in the chat a link to the draft agenda as well, which has just been updated, so you can see the details of the different sessions that will be during the summit itself. and yeah, quite a few sessions that are relevant to mainstream participation. So hopefully you'll find the summit useful, as well as the session that will be dedicated for this for the MPA as well.
Great. We don't have time, but I think it would be unfair to, for you to go home with any questions that you have. This is the moment we can spend a couple of, just like a minute or two, just, yeah, Rodrigo, is your hand?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just one quick question. What countries are considered part of the global north in the definition that the net is using, and which are not?
Yeah, very interesting. I think Canada, Netherlands, UK, Spain, France. I don't know which other one I've left, but like those developed economies and democracies. I would say, yeah.
Okay, so North America and Europe,
Yes.
mostly. Okay. Good.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Looks like we don't have any more questions. All right, so let's bring this to a close, and we see each other on emails and WhatsApps and all these other spaces that we'll find, each other. Please, if you have questions, if you are facing any challenge, please do not hesitate, because we want to make progress. We want to see that we have action plans, taking shape by mid-August, and then we shift gears to start thinking about implementation, because it wouldn't make sense developing very nice ideas and not implementing them. So we are very looking forward and optimistic that we can, even as we develop these reforms, we can start implementing them. And with that, I want to close.
Bye, everyone. See you in
Thanks,
person.
everyone.
Great. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you.